Welcome to this session on mindfulness, awareness, and compassion practice. What we'll be doing today is going through this sequence of practices. And in the mindfulness tradition, very often we talk about doing short sessions, but many of them, rather than just one long session. So I'm going to introduce a few different practices, and we'll do them for short sessions. If you connect with any of them and want to be able to do them on your own, you can lengthen the sessions, and we'll talk about that after we go through this when we have our discussion. So the idea of mindfulness practice is to be more present to our experience. Now, unless you have a time machine in your backyard, the location of your body in space is always here. The location of your body in time is always now. But our minds are a time machine, and we can go into the past and the future and elsewhere in the present. So what we want to do is synchronize body and mind. And the only place that can happen is in the here and now. Now, the particular perspective that I've been taught and that I teach is a kind of good news about the here and now, about mindfulness, and that is people usually think their state of distraction and speediness and mental activity is their natural state, and they have to find this peace, they have to find this mindfulness. But it's actually the other way around. That's our default mode. Our default mode is peace of mind. What we do is we superimpose, we add things on top of that. And so once we just stop adding more on, then that's where we find ourselves naturally. So what we'll be doing is letting ourselves drop into that natural place. And when we find ourselves having spun out of that and into a daydream, at that moment, we want to have a sense of humor. So the whole practice is connecting with something in the present moment. And we'll be working with our breathing, and I'll explain that a little bit. And then when we find that we're no longer doing that, and we have this function, it's a mental capacity of awareness to know whether we are or not. Otherwise, we'd go off into a daydream and essentially never wake up. But at some point, it pops, and there's this gap, and we go, oh, I was daydreaming, and now I'm not. So we're already back in the present. And that's really the process of the practice. At that moment, we recognize and we go with a sense of humor, go, oh, wandering. I was in a daydream. And then just gently return to whatever it was that we had as our object of attention. And that's what we'll work through. So what's helpful to pay attention is like when we were little kids, the teacher said, sit up and pay attention. So essentially, we take this posture sitting up. Ideally, some people work with breathing and mindfulness lying down, but the tendency if you're lying down is to fall asleep. And the tendency if you do it before you're trained in it, standing up, is to move around and be unstable. So we want to have a stable seat, something that you can sit in comfortably. Ideally not leaning back if you can, if your back can manage it. If you are leaning against a seat, put something against your lower back so that you can stay upright rather than slumped. Legs, if you're on a low cushion or a chair, a low chair where your knees are higher than your hips, just cross your legs gently in front of you. If you're in a chair and your knees are not higher than your hips, you can put your feet flat on the floor about hip width apart. You let your arms hang straight down from your shoulders. Leave the elbows where they are. And if you tend to have your shoulders rolled forward a little bit, just pull them back just a little bit gently, not exaggerated, but just a little bit so that they're kind of in the middle. And let your arms hang down, leave the elbows where they are, and then swivel your hands up, palm down, on top of each thigh, just behind your knees. We want our head to be upright. If our chin floats up, we tend to get a little spaced out. If we roll our head down, we get sleepy. So we want that kind of middle ground. Hang on a second. It's easier if I lift things up here. There we go. We want that kind of middle ground where, and I'm going to turn to the side, where we're not tilted down and our chin's not up. But if the back of your head extends gently upward, your chin comes in naturally without pulling it in. So you may find that helpful to have that feeling. Sometimes they talk about grabbing you by the cowlick if you still have your hair. And that pulls straight up and you have this sense of extending upward where you're upright but not rigid. We want to feel like our spine is like a tent pole. And the rest of our body just hangs from that like the canvas. And that's a feeling of uprightness with softness or relaxation. Firm back, soft front. Our jaws, we don't want to let them hang slack open, but not clench them. So ideally, we want our lips just lightly touching or slightly parted. And we'll work with our eye gaze in different ways, but to begin with, as we get more settled and centered in our body, let your eyes gently close. Most of our breathing will be through our nose. If you're not comfortable just breathing through your nose, as much as you can, breathe in through your nose. And then it's okay if some of the air comes out through your mouth as well when you exhale. But ideally, inhale through your nose. And feel your body. Let's embody ourselves. Too often, it's like we're this little person rattling around in our head trying to run this body, and it's two separate things. But let's let mind and body be fully synchronized by embodying your mind, feeling everything in your body. Start from the toes up, wiggle your toes, feel your feet, really get a sense of the feeling of your feet, your ankles, calves. You can move a little bit at each part and flex a little bit if you need to, just to enliven and embody and feel that you're fully inhabiting your whole body. Calves, shins, knees, hamstrings and thighs, everything in your upper legs. Feel the strength of your upper legs. Hands, wrists, forearms. Now your torso, your pelvis, hips, lower back and deep belly. I just moved around a little bit, got a little crack there, just from gently moving. Releasing some of the tension. Rib cage. We have depth. Usually we almost think of ourselves as two-dimensional. There's room between your front and your back. We have depth. Upper back, chest, upper arms, shoulders, up to your neck and head, and fully embody them. Now we need some tension to hold our posture, but what we want to do is be aware of what we need and what's excess, what we don't need. So use your awareness to scan your body from the top down, noticing any pockets of unnecessary tension. Your scalp and forehead, eyes, cheekbones, ears, jaw. That's where we sometimes have more tension than we realize. Just let it soften. Let any tension feel like it melts and flows down and out of you. Neck and shoulders. Sometimes we're walking around, our shoulders are up our ears and we don't even know it. Just let them soften, let them hang there. If you need to, you can lift them a little and just not push them down, but let them drop naturally. Out to the points of the shoulders, the upper arms, chest and upper back, shoulder blades, down through the rib cage, solar plexus. Are you clenching your stomach? Just let it soften. Lower back, some tension there to hold our posture, but often more than we really need. Find that balance where you soften without sagging. Stomach and deep belly. Pelvic area. Hips. Let any tension you find there just melt and flow down and out of you. Thighs, forearms and hands, knees, back down through the calves and shins, ankles and feet. Now, fully embodied, and as tension-free as we can be. Let your awareness drop down. Sometimes when we do this, we're still kind of up in our heads as if our mind is in a tower behind our forehead, looking at our body. Let your mind drop into your body. It's as if your awareness drops down and floats down behind your throat, behind your chest, just floats down in front of your spine like a leaf floating to the bottom of a pond. Past your rib cage and solar plexus, past your stomach, down past your navel, and the deep core of your torso. A few inches below the navel, just in front of the spine. It's quiet down there. The only movement is gentle movement as your breathing goes in and out, like the gentle currents at the bottom of that pond. Quiet space. Now, let yourself sink down into the cushion. Feel your weight sinking down, really sinking into the cushion. Sometimes it's as if we're perching on our seat, as if somebody's going to pull the chair out from under us any second. Let the seat support you. sink down. And imagine that you're sinking even further, further down, as if you're merging with the earth. Imagine that your lower body is part of the earth, your upper body extending upward majestically like a mountain, all part of the earth. That's as grounded as you can be. Become aware of your breathing without directing it or controlling it. Just notice it coming and going like the wind, sometimes stronger, sometimes softer. Like the wind coming and going around the mountain. Let your mind be open as the sky. Wide open space where things can come and go. Clouds float by, birds go by, nothing leaving a trace. Open, unbiased sky. Body like a mountain, breath like the wind, mind like the sky. Let your eyes gently open. And again, be an observer of your breath, but tune in at this point, for this practice, to what it feels like inside your body as the breath comes in. Feel the internal sensation of filling. Then there's a momentary gap, and as the breath goes out, the sensation of emptying. At first, you may take a little bit bigger breath to feel that, but then just let it happen naturally. Your breath may be quite gentle, it may be a very subtle feeling, but just follow the feeling like waves rising and falling, filling, then emptying. And as we said, if the mind wanders into a daydream, when you realize it, at a certain point, when you realize it, just at that point, you've woken up from the daydream, just smile, go, daydreaming or wandering, if it was just a few thoughts wandering off, back to filling and emptying. We'll do that for a couple of minutes. If your eyes have closed and you've gotten sleepy, just open them wider, raise your gaze a little bit higher. Take a couple of nice full breaths, and then go back to the practice. If you felt like your mind was wild, close your eyes even more, not all the way closed, but so that you just barely see down in the space in front of you. And be aware of the feeling of filling and emptying deep in your torso. As the gong fades, move a little bit, refresh yourself, and then reinvigorate your posture. And now raise your gaze, looking almost straight ahead, just slightly downward, somewhere between the horizon, just slightly downward below it. Tuning in to your breath as it goes out, being with the breath as it goes out. We're switching our reference point from internal sensation and now decentralizing and going out with the out breath. What happens to the breath actually is that the breath goes out, mixes with the space in the room, dissolves into that space in the room, the atmosphere in the room. So as your breath dissolves into the atmosphere, let your mind open up and dissolve into the space, become one with the space. And then just rest in that openness as the breath comes in by itself. Your body will breathe itself. And then as the breath goes out again, reconnect with that and go out, dissolve, and rest. Out, dissolve, and rest. We'll do that for a few minutes. Again, if your mind wanders, when you realize it, just come back, connect to your posture, wait for the next out breath, and go out, dissolve, and rest. As the gong fades, again, relax and reinvigorate. We take a moment to refresh. We work with the breathing for a number of reasons. The in-breath has an energizing quality. The out-breath has a relaxing quality. So we feel the movement of energizing and relaxing in our being. It's something like life that goes on whether we're paying attention to it or not, and we can control it to some extent, but not entirely. And it's our connection to our environment. We're breathing in the environment. We're breathing in something that is not me, that becomes me, and then part of me goes out and becomes part of the environment. And we can't really find that spot where it stops being environment and starts being me. So it's a non-dual experience. We're not the same as our environment, but we're not separate from it. In the same way that we're not the same as others, but we're not separate from them. So we use our breath to connect with others. And this is the compassion practice. You can do this with your eyes open or closed. But to begin with, tune into your own nature of goodness. If you have to imagine that, you can imagine that, but it's a feeling of well-being. And it may be helpful to imagine a ball of light, an orb of light, or a crystal made of light in your heart center. That's the center of your chest, at the level of your heart, that represents that quality of natural goodness, natural wisdom and kindness that we all have in us. For some buried pretty deeply, for others accessible. We can find that, we can touch into that. Touch into your natural goodness, your natural wisdom and compassion. We all have the capacity to know and the capacity to feel. That is the nature of mind. And the highest virtues of those are wisdom and compassion, or selfless love. So tune into your potential, your capacity for wisdom and compassion. And begin with yourself, tuning into all the ways that you feel bad about yourself, diminish yourself, are angry toward yourself, or hold emotions towards others that you're not happy that you have. Jealousy, fear, anger. And tuning into those in your being, imagine that as you breathe in, you gather them all into that ball of light in your heart center, into your basic goodness that transforms them, and radiate out to yourself kindness, peace, forgiveness, acceptance. Gather in the negativity and radiate out. You can imagine that cool moonlight, beautiful moonlight of kindness fills your whole being. And feelings of forgiveness, acceptance, and peace, contentment fill your being. Gather the negativity as you breathe in. Radiate out kindness and forgiveness and peace to yourself as you breathe out. Breathe in unease. Breathe out to yourself contentment. And again, you can leave your eyes closed or open them. But now imagine in front of you one or more of your loved ones, friends, family, people you care deeply about, one or more, and know that they are suffering. They have unhappiness. They have struggle. And connect with them through your breathing. Imagine that as you breathe in, you take that away from them. You relieve them of that. And you take it and gather it into the light in your heart center that instantly transforms it and radiates out the opposite, the moonlight of kindness that fills their beings with peace, well-being, and happiness. Breathe in their suffering and struggle. Breathe out, radiating to them well-being and happiness. Expand that as best you can to more people, maybe everyone you know. Include people you have difficulty with. Breathe in the difficulty from them and from yourself. Transform it and radiate out acceptance, peace, harmony. As best you can, expand the scope to the whole world. If you'd like, you can focus on all the places where people are having extreme suffering, the war in Ukraine, places in Africa, other continents. Violence perpetrated on others. The victims are suffering terribly. Breathe in their fear. Breathe in their pain. Radiate out to them relief and at least a moment of peace of mind, freedom from fear. And finally, this may be the hardest, the perpetrators of the violence. As human beings, they have that inherent nature of goodness. It's so covered with their own anger, hatred, fear, greed, lust for power, jealousy. All the negative emotions have so possessed them like demons. Imagine that as you breathe in, you can take away all those demons and radiate out to them the light of wisdom and compassion. If we could take all of the demons away from all of the perpetrators of violence and replace it with wisdom and compassion, it would be a world, an enlightened world of peace, wisdom, and compassion. With that aspiration, breathe in, take that negativity away, breathe out the light of wisdom and compassion. And as a further connection with everyone, traditionally, we end these sessions by realizing that our intention coming in is not just to do this for ourselves, but that we can be better people to be better for others. And during the practice, we do our best to stay with our mindfulness and fully engage. And at the end, we want to extend the benefits of the practice to others, along with our intention as we started. So you can repeat after me, or you can say it in your own words. May the practice I have done be of benefit to others as well as myself. And if you're feeling particularly generous or want to cultivate that greater generosity, you can even say, may the practice I have just done be of even more benefit to others than to myself. So that concludes our mindfulness, awareness, and compassion practice. If you'd like to unmute, we can have some discussion. I think everybody, can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Good. So any questions, comments, discussion are welcome. The floor is open.
Well, thank you, first of all, just for continuing to lead these, Joe. I really appreciate it. Friday morning, not every Friday, but just thank you. I'm missing part of the Open Championship, so I really sacrificed to be here. But thank you.
Well, there's these things. You're very welcome, Bob. I appreciate that. There are these things that they have nowadays called digital video recorders.
No, not the same. But you're right. You're right. No, there's no shortage of video out there. But just again, it's
yes.
Oh, we need this. I mean, I wish I could get Mr. Putin and a few others to do this.
Well, they aren't, so we have to do it for them. That's what that last part of the practice is.
Yeah, I know. I thank you.
It's an interesting one because it's too easy to fall into their camp and say, "Oh, I want to give compassion to the poor people of Ukraine, but I hate the Russians who are doing that to them."
Yeah, that just keeps us divided,
as we well know.
If we could all simply emulate Ben's dog.
There you go.
That's
expressing such affection all constantly.
Well, that's actually, it's time for you to feed me, Dad.
Yeah. I suppose there is a utilitarian purpose to it sometimes, but sometimes it's just pure love.
No, it's love. It's lovely. And Joe, the meditations are lovely. And one thing I noticed today was when I was focusing on the out breath, it made me more focused on my in breath and more present. It's just an observation.
Yeah, nice. that happens very often. In fact, some people say, you say don't pay so much attention to the in-breath, but as soon as you say don't do that, it becomes more. So I didn't say don't pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. I just said let it come in by itself. But the idea, ideally, what we want to do is when we go out, rest so that our mind rests in that open space. It's not so much a coming in and going out back and forth, but going out, resting, and then ideally, as we develop the practice, you go out and then you don't even need to pick up the next out breath. You just hang out there in open space. And that's it's kind of a consequence that happens after you do that for a while. It's almost like, do I really have to go back to the start of the out breath? I was just being in this space, and the instruction is, go ahead, just be in the space. Now, if a thought comes up and takes you away, then reconnect to posture, go out with the out breath for a few breaths, and then just let be. And then that's the non-dual experience of mixing mind and space, yourself and the environment. Then there's not this separateness, this non-duality. There is non-duality. In fact, in the Buddhist tradition, they don't say it's all one. We don't say it's all one because that's kind of a homogenized, Jello. Big bowl of Jello. But what we say is it's not two. We think of it as two. Me versus that. And when we drop that and are part of it, then we're fully engaged. And I know for the people that are golfers, when you're out there and experience that, and that you and the golf course, the balls, the clubs, the other people, it's all one unified field of experience. What we actually experience is a very deep and profound kind of joy. And I use the word joy rather than happiness, when we get something that we like, oh, that makes me happy. But when we feel that that not to-ness with what's going on with our partner, in our life, with our experience, anywhere in nature, on the golf course, wherever it is, that non-dual experience is, they even call it bliss in some of they translate it as bliss in some of the traditions. We're talking about traditions that have come over from India and Tibet and China and Japan, and so they don't call it bliss 2,000 years ago when they weren't speaking English. But it's we want to convey that more than a temporary happiness.
It's funny, Joe. I just the other morning I was playing with a friend who's also a Shiva Science Society member. We decided to play a silent hole, and I think it kind of encouraged that oneness and bliss.
That's
it didn't hurt that our drives landed within 6 inches of each other on the par 5, but it was, we were able to maintain connectedness and also the silence. It was really, really kind of sweet.
I like that, Ben. Thank you. A silent hole. Even for me, when I play by myself, can I be silent? Or,
yeah.
God dang it, Bob! What kind of shot was that?
Yeah. Or just silent in your mind. Yeah.
I've got a hard stop. I've got I mean, not that you guys care, but I've got a 9 o'clock. But again, Joe, thank you, Ben. Thanks for keeping the Shiva Science Society going. So I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Joe, I want to say a quick thanks. Really enjoyed being led. I'm usually in the position of leading these, so it's a real joy to be led through a meditation, and I love some of the imagery. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I look forward to meeting you. I think we're going to meet in August.
We are. I'm looking forward to that too.
Doug, what is that screen behind you?
You mean this here?
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of a divider. It's a kind of a screen from the office that I brought in here just to kind of give a little bit of separation from my the rest of the room.
Nice.
But
So
I keep the fish there.
When your mind goes backwards, it hits the screen and it doesn't make it all the way into your office. That's good. I like that.
Let him stay in the present moment.
Should put a mirror there, right?
Lovely. Any other questions or comments before we go?
Doc, one other thing, we talked so much about this not to, or oneness, or however we want to describe it. And just an anecdote. I used to play in a golf league when I was still teaching with other university professors and staff, and we played on a regular basis with the baseball coach of our university campus, and he was his personality I always thought was more like a football coach. It was very assertive and aggressive when he was out there. And he said one time we were playing, and he said, "I'm the baseball coach, so I really don't know much about the golf swing. But here's one thing I can tell you about the golf swing. When you get out on the golf course, you've got to attack a golf course. You have to attack it. You have to attack it and bring it to its knees." And of course, a lot of professional players do really well doing that. But I would always think to myself in my mind, no, I'm not out here to attack the golf course. I'm out here to bond with it, to be one with it. If we're talking about using the semantics of saying being one with something or not, but that was the way that I thought about it. I always thought, no, I'm trying to bond with it, be one with it, be in grace with it.
That's great. The word that comes to my mind whenever I talk about something like that is dance. To dance with it, and when you're dancing, I think whenever I think of dance, I think of Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and they moved as one, right? They weren't one, there were two of them, but they moved as one. And so we can be as one with that experience. And professionals rarely succeed by attacking a golf course and bringing it to its knees. I think that was an expression of Ben Hogan when he played the best round of his life, and he said, "I brought this monster to its knees." But it was an expression that he was able to conquer a very challenging golf course. But there are moments to attack. It's more like a samurai. You have to pick your moments to attack, and then moments to just know where to go. And watching the Open Championship, I love the old course. It's my favorite course in the world. And if you don't dance with it, it doesn't go well. So they're experiencing that out there. So thank you all. I'm going to go look at my recording. And I don't know if I'm going to do any more this summer. But I will keep you posted, and I might change the date and time to make it more accessible for people who haven't been able to. But I hope people will still be able to come, and maybe I'll mix it up, and we'll see what we can do. So thank you all. It's been my great pleasure to be able to do these sessions with you all.